lights dim, the audience hushes, and then it's thunderous, exciting, visceral. It reaches in and grabs you. It's a musical but without lyrics. It speaks through physical interpretation, through evocative energy, and through the dance itself. Its voyage is a personal one, yet it's accessible to all. It's no wonder Riverdance is one of the most popular and durable live shows in history.
Growing up with Irish dancing, it was rather staid and stiff and kind of beautiful, but this had such power, Riverdance.
There was such a big thing about it. And then when I eventually saw it, there was something unbelievably powerful about it. And I think I almost cried.
It's created its own legacy and almost created its own cultural update to the Irish story.
It's about emigration and people going away and people overcoming difficulties in a new land. And every nation can relate to that.
We didn't have all those like lavish channels, but the one channel we did have was a channel that would play Riverdance, the on-stage Riverdance, and my mom would always watch it. And it quite possibly was my first introduction to stage performance of that nature.
There's a reason audiences around the world have been giving it standing ovations for 25 years, and it's the reason it's an exciting source for an animated feature.
For some time, we'd been exploring ideas about developing the music and dance of Riverdance into something richer and into something maybe more contemporary.
Working with Aniventure as a partner with Cinesite has been a great experience. They're communicators, they're collaborators, they're partners with us really, and they want what our studio wants, which is the best possible project.
I couldn't remember the last time I saw an animated film that relied so heavily on dance. And so I was very, very intrigued.
The stage show relies less on a narrative and more on a musical journey. So it was very different from adapting a book or even starting an original screenplay from scratch.
Come on guys, let's go.
It was always an interesting experiment to be able to find a story that somehow or other would incorporate the feeling of Riverdance, the sort of celebratory feeling of the dance and of the music, and to incorporate that in a story that reached into a mixture of Irish mythology, to have characters like Megaloceros, which none of us really had known about until then, and pinning the various elements of the story around signal moments of the score. And I think David Tyler had come up with a story which is not just a simple kind of a romp. It is a story that has depth to it.
We all feel a little lost sometimes, Keegan. I think I can help.
It offers us creativity, imagination, fantasy, a new language, a new narrative. It allows us to stay within the confines of the Ireland that's Ireland, yet fly like a bird somewhere else.
It's a mythical, magical experience in a mythical, magical land. And it's a word you don't use often, but I think it's unique.
This is the gate through which spirits from the past, present, and future pass.
You have to start with sincerity, sincerity of heart and storytelling. It's very much about family, it's very much about community.
We're more alike than you know.
You always say that, Grandad. Now, relax. I can clean up on my own.
There's a heartbeat to this film, and it's Bill Whelan's music. Bill is a master at his craft and is always reinventing himself and challenging everyone to hear things in a new way. Old fans and new will be enthralled. This score combines the best of the show and many new surprises. I'm not sure if he can win another Grammy for it, but he should definitely win the Oscar.
The differences between working, shall we say, for a theatre show and for a show which is for a score that is accompanying a piece of film, they're quite different. You can become another character in the film as the score. Dave and Eamon and I would discuss, like, what am I doing at this moment in the score? Am I giving away part of the story? Am I hinting at what's coming? Or am I actually creating something that the audience will ultimately, when it does happen, they won't have expected it?
What is this place?
A bridge between light and dark.
So you have that kind of conspiratorial coming together of creative talents to actually try and construct something that actually works to images that already exist.
I can see the light is burning in your eyes. We will rise above the darkness of the night.
The collaboration that happened with Lyra, I listened to some of her stuff and I thought, wow, what a voice. This young lady is really something. So we began to have early communications, and then finally we met. The two of us sat there for an afternoon, looked at the film, and I could tell right away that she really got it.
I can see the lighthouse, I can see the light. Let's dance!
I was initially obviously so excited to be involved in the project, to get to work with Bill himself. It was just a challenge which I really, really loved, and I kind of sat down and thought to myself, how would I sing it in my own voice and then melt that into the movie score itself so they can both really work well together, which I think is something that we have achieved and I'm very, very proud of.
Not very good at DJing.
We wanted to make sure that each element of the stage show was reflected in the film, so that both old and new fans alike would have something to love. For instance, in the stage show, there's a fabulous scene that takes place in Russia, and it showcases the Russian dervish. There's Spanish influences represented by the flamenco. There's a great comedic tap dance scene in New York City, and of course the iconic rhythmic energy of Irish dancing. It all comes together to tell a global story, and we wanted to reflect that spirit in our animated retelling of the show. So for instance, Moya, one of our protagonists, is a talented flamenco dancer. She's voiced by Herman Cortes, who was actually born in the Spanish city where flamenco originated from.
Get ready for your mind to be blown.
Moya is a girl who is originally from Spain but moved to Ireland when she was 6, and she loved dancing flamenco with her grandma.
Maybe you're less Riverdance and more flamenco.
The cast features wonderfully nuanced vocal performances. Pierce Brosnan's gravitas, Brenden Gleeson's devilish charm.
I wouldn't tell anyone you saw me, because then they'd know what you did.
Hannah Herman Cortes, she was as graceful as her character dancing on the water. Lilly Singh is hysterical in My New Lucky Charm. Jermaine Fowler, hilarious. Ashlyn B, genius. Seriously, her mind is insane. Pauline McLynn, so warm as Grandma. John Cavanaugh, always regal. Danny McColgan, he needs his own sitcom.
Leg it, lads!
John McColgan, director of the stage show, lent his wonderfully rich voice to our priest. And last but not least, Sam Hardy as our hero was my hero.
Keegan is a boy who's lost his granddad, who is very, very close to.
Hey, Keeg.
Hi, Moya.
Keegan and Moya are very good friends because they've both lost their granddad and grandma, and they both sort of help each other with their problems.
I was hoping you could say goodbye to your granddad. It's okay. Thank you for trying.
Here's a project that already has a built-in audience with built-in expectations. However, to make an animated film, we very quickly realized we need to aim this movie at a different audience, a younger audience.
Hey, Granddad!
Hey there, Mr. Hotshot DJ.
We're a family show, and I think that's what's really beautiful about the animation. It's a family entertainment.
Oh, my back. Oops, I'll feel that one in the morning.
We wanted the comedy of Riverdance to be physical, to go with the physical nature of the dancing.
Ow!
I'm also a big believer in letting your actors ad-lib and improvise so you can capture a sense of them playing around in their performance.
Are they on me? Are they on me? Are they in my mouth?
So we hired a lot of great comedians who over-delivered, and that really resonates in the film.
No problem, Mr. JJ. Can I get a high five? Oh, slightly missed it there. Yeah, okay.
When the cast and crew are having fun making a film, I think the audience can feel it when they're watching. And we want the audience to have a good time. That's why there's dancing deer and flying sheep, exploding frogs, and raucous hurling.
In order to be faithful to Padraig's choreography and the dancers' amazing, incredible craft and skill, we decided early on that we wanted the actual dancing recorded. So we used a tried and tested technique called motion capture, which is where we take a performer, put them in a room with dozens and dozens of infrared cameras pointing at the performer. The performer wears a very tight-fitting lycra outfit covered in tracking markers. Because they're surrounded by cameras, we're able to triangulate every single one of these tracking markers and translate that data onto a three-dimensional model inside the computer.
It wasn't until we saw the motion capture that we really had a sense of the incredible physicality of the dance, how detailed it was, how fast it was. When you saw that in 3D in the computer, it just gave you such an appreciation for the skill of the dancers.
I think the animators have gotten it spot on. I mean, when you see that line of dancers with the umbrellas in the beginning, it's super perfect.
One of the tricks that we discovered, I think Eamon discovered it, was on the hoof of the deer. Because of the nature of the dancing and the fact that the toes and the heels are used in Irish dancing a lot, you can't bend a hoof. You know, it's somebody came up with the idea of putting in an extra joint, basically so that this part here would bend forward. So when the front of the hoof goes down, you could bend it like a human toe, so he'd go on the ball. So there was lots of little things like that that we discovered that we could do that nobody would really notice, I think, but it really brought a believability to these creatures.
Wait, you've heard of us, right?
Only in history class.
I actually have quite a few favorite scenes in the film. The sequence, for example, where Moya dances on water.
This was a particular scene that was memorable from the stage show, and we needed to get it right in the animated feature film. So the whole setup was near sunset. What I like about it is that it's really the work of every department. The camera work was complementing the work done in animation. The effects were subtle, and the overall movement of the character as it goes from light to shadow and into silhouette as it comes across the setting sun. Lighting is important in animated feature film because it sets the overall visual language of the film. Specifically in the campfire scene, we basically used lighting to create a safe environment for Keegan to open up about his feelings.
The Moya and Keegan campfire scene was, something that somebody might consider really simple. It's two characters sitting there having a conversation. So the staging was pretty straightforward. However, what we were able to do with that scene is really work on the composition and inspire the emotional reaction that the audience would have to such a dramatic moment.
Where are we? Someplace magical. Yeah, right.
My favorite scene is probably when they were just under the rock with the fire on, looking up at the stars. I think then the two characters really clicked together and they just became really good friends then.
You're pretty good. How come I've never seen you Irish dance? I don't know. How come I've never seen you flamenco?
There are moments from the show that we tap into. One of the interesting ones was we had there's a solo after the funeral dance that was typically performed by a male lead and is now performed by a female. And it's such an obvious way to put a spin on something and yet make it very contemporary and appropriate. Other instances, we've used the sound of dance as our soundtrack. There is a stampede sequence late in the movie where we use this very percussive dance step sound to build tension and excitement.
The hooves were various props on cobblestone and rock and dirt. One of the things that's interesting about Foley is that if you see something on screen, you get something that's at least 3 times the size to record. So we had some very large sounds for the footsteps. That wasn't the only challenge. One of the things that we inherited from the original stage show was the sound of the dancing. And this sound element was key to the music because it was essentially the percussion track. In the film, what we had was Megaloceros hooves, and then the dancing on a stage was human beings with shoes on a wooden stage. What we needed to do was enhance that. We went through several layers of stereo footsteps that Bill had, and we synchronized other enhanced sounds that supported the actual imagery.
Growing up in South Asian culture, although not, Irish culture, the one thing that is very similar is that art really brings people together and dance brings people together. And so I really love the portrayal of that through the film.
Let's dance!
There are layers to the film that are not just as it appears.
This is where I saw my grandma, Keegan.
Dealing with the loss of somebody, but dealing with it, and dealing with having made a mistake, and it being okay to have made a mistake.
For kids, some of that part will wash over them, and they love, the frogs, and they love the fact that sheep bounce around like they do in the film.
It's a magical, funny journey, and it's heartwarming and rewarding.
So, there's still time for you to dance the flamenco tonight?
Our characters suffer loss, but experience great joy. They find renewal and hope along a river that connects us all, even across time. This is what they celebrate, this is why they dance. It's our hope that audiences feel that way too, and that Riverdance, the animated adventure, will have families and communities around the world dancing with us.
Hey, when are you gonna dance? What makes you think I'm not?